Trigger warning. I am talking in depth about depression in today's video, including symptoms and coping mechanisms. So, trigger warning. Hey there and welcome to my channel. This is Foggy Fiction and I am Haley. I'm a writer living with mental illness, doing my best to show that mental health does not dictate talent or worth, and hoping to encourage others to chase their dreams. So you're writing about someone who has depression. Not only have I been diagnosed with Major Depressive Disorder and am willing to talk about it, it's the reason I've been struggling to get any videos posted lately. Except for yesterday. Yesterday was that I recorded this video and realized when I went to edit it that there was no sound. And I had to work yesterday, so I just decided to put it off until today. Here we are. If you've been wondering if the way that you're writing a character with depression is going to come off the right way, and you're itching to talk to someone who has experienced it for a bit of insight, you're watching the right video. So let's get to it. If you can hear a snorting sound, that's my cat. She snorts when she bathes. I don't know. First thing, you do not have to have experienced a traumatic event to have depression. While these things might contribute to it, there are people out there who have experienced depression without having any clear reason for its occurrence. There is still research being done and no definitive cause has been determined, but the one thing that my own research found across multiple sources is that depression is linked to changes in the brain and is often found to be more common in families with a history of the diagnosis. Otherwise, sometimes it just happens. Speaking of changes in the brain, if you watch my last two videos in this series, I mentioned that depression is linked to anxiety and panic disorder and PTSD, which also are described as causing changes in the brain. For example, with my panic disorder, my brain has basically rewired itself to go into fight or flight mode during moments when that shouldn't occur. I just thought that was an interesting little thing there and wanted to bring it up. So if you are writing a character who has depression and you're worried that your readers won't buy it because your character hasn't experienced anything crazy or traumatic, you're totally fine. Some people just unfortunately have one of those brains. While my own depression can be linked to the tragedies that I have experienced, I can remember experiencing some of the symptoms long before those big traumas hit me. Alright, so what about symptoms? Before my diagnosis, I was one of those people that was under the impression that depression was one of those things where you get sad and hide under a blanket in a dark room. And while that could be what someone with depression wants to do, it's really so much more than that. Depression isn't always visible. In fact, more often than not, it seems, depression isn't noticed at all. For me, symptoms include recurring thoughts of death. In my case, I have intrusive thoughts related to my intense fear of death, loss of interest or pleasure in things I normally am into, or even regular things like bathing, fatigue and general lack of energy, difficulty sleeping, feelings of worthlessness, guilt, or emptiness, indecisiveness, easily irritated, physical pains such as stomach pains and headaches, and of course, as mentioned, anxiety is linked to depression, which I have also been diagnosed with. While I don't experience every single one of these every single day, I do experience most of them every day. I have wanted to write up the script for this video for months. Every time I thought about putting in the time to do the research, I felt like I had a blanket on my shoulders that was so heavy I couldn't take the steps to get started. And then I felt guilty for not doing it. And then I felt like a lame piece of crap for not doing the thing when I wanted to do the thing, and I just couldn't bring myself to do the thing when I absolutely had the time to do the damn thing. Sometimes that happens. But, during all that, I've also been having a hard time getting out of bed on time. I've been ignoring my alarms. I haven't been making it to work as early as I usually do. I've been having a hard time reading and writing and playing video games, things I usually do regularly. I've been having a hard time forcing myself to take a shower, and even then, sometimes I'm only able to wash my hair, and that's it. I washed my hair yesterday for the first time in, I think, 4 days, and really it was just a, I have to go to work tonight and my hair looks disgusting kind of situation. And then I didn't blow dry it. I threw it up in a bun and left it there until I went to bed last night, which is probably why it looks not so great today. I do want to add, though, that things have been getting better for me. I have started reading again. I actually just read through an entire comic series called Aphrodite 9, I think is what it was. And I started reading the Slow Burn series again, which is my favorite series by my favorite author, Bobby Adair. And I did start playing games again. I played It Takes Two with my boyfriend. Such a great game. And they dropped a new season for Fallout 76, which I was actually playing right before I started filming this video today. Things are getting better, and I'm feeling that want to write again. I actually wrote some poetry, that's been my thing for as long as I can remember. So it's coming back slowly but surely. I just wanted to add that in because things are getting better on that note for me. So back to what I've actually written here. There are a number of symptoms that can be attributed to depression, so if you're writing a character who has it, my biggest recommendation would be to just research symptoms and decide what is right in your character situation. I've said it so many times and I'll say it again, only you can know what is best for your character and your story. I'm bringing that trigger warning back around right now because this is the moment where it needs to be said the most. I also want to be incredibly vulnerable for a second because this is not something I like to talk about. However, I think it is an important thing to add, especially with the crude ways that I've seen this included in media portrayals of depression. I have dealt with depression for many years before my official diagnosis, and my symptoms haven't always been the same, and I did used to self-harm. It has been probably 8 or 9 years since the last time that I did, and I'm not going to go into details about my preferred method because I don't want to provide ideas for someone looking for a way to hurt themselves that isn't cutting. It was a part of my experience, though, and you might feel that it should be part of your character's experience, too. But make sure that if you include that it fits your character and that it fits your story. There is absolutely no reason to include it if it's not necessary or if it isn't adding anything to your story that's relevant. I also want to state that while I use this as a coping mechanism, I do not view it as one. Coping mechanisms, while they're not always healthy, are not supposed to harm you. So, what are my coping mechanisms? If you've been following my channel or this series, you've heard me talk about how a lot of my coping mechanisms overlap, and that is no different here. Distraction is my number one, and it's also more difficult with my depression. I like to do things that keep my mind off of my issues and away from my triggers. Watch TV, read, play video games. The problem is that when my depression gets bad, I don't have the motivation to do those things, even if deep down inside, I want to. I just can't bring myself to do those things that I love. I do try to push myself anyway, but sometimes I just have to let myself do nothing. Sleep, lie in bed and browse Reddit, lie in bed and stare at the ceiling, actually lie there and do nothing. Just enough until I can push myself to climb out of bed and do something other than lie there. Even if it means I'm just going to go in my living room, put Pokemon on the TV, and lay there and play on my phone. So another one, I have a bad habit of focusing on the bad things going on in my life, and I have found that setting small goals and rewarding myself helps in many ways. I track it in my bullet journal, which gives me something to focus on that is also a crafty project. I'm a crafty person, I like my crafty stuff. It helps give me a little more motivation to work on those goals, because loving the thing you're working on isn't always enough motivation to keep working on the goal. Sometimes you need just a little bit more. And I get excited about the little rewards, which also fuels that motivation. I also went to therapy when I could afford it, and I do believe that that was a big help. Not just when I went to EMDR, but also when I just had therapy in general. I honestly really miss it. There are so many things out there that people with depression use for coping mechanisms. Say it again with me, only you can know what is right for your character and your story. And before I wrap things up, I just want to add this little extra bit in here. Depression is different for everyone and can also be different at different times for the same person. When I was going through EMDR trauma therapy, my therapist started every session with a series of questions to see how I was doing. One of those was something along the lines of, on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being the worst you've experienced and 0 being none, where would you rate your depression today? I saw my therapist once a week, and my answer varied week to week. If you were to ask me every day, it would vary day to day. I have Major Depressive Disorder, also known as clinical depression, and every day looks different for me. And as I mentioned earlier, certain things like traumatic events can have an impact. The day after my father's house burned down, I remember waking up and not wanting to get out of bed. I laid there for a long time staring at the wall. I had lost my childhood home, my cat, and more than half of my stuff had been in storage at my dad's since my mom had died. While I was extremely thankful that my dad had made it out alive and well, the loss for me was immense. And it was a long time before I felt the motivation to do much of anything again. So that's what I have for you on depression. If you're writing about someone who has it and are curious if what you're writing might be coming off wrong, I hope that my insight can help. I always recommend doing research, but I know very well how much more personal insight can give than just reading clinical articles on the internet. If you have any questions about what I covered, or if I didn't cover something you're curious about, please ask me in the comments below. I try to be as open as I possibly can about mental illness, especially, with my own personal experiences, and I don't want you to feel like you can't ask questions. Otacom wants to help me finish the video. So like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you're interested in following my very clumsy journey as a writer living with mental illness, and enjoy the happy moments.